Shockwaves went through the wrestling world last month when an old memo written by a former NXT wrestler was made public, alleging serious claims against then-head trainer Bill DeMott. Among other things, DeMott was accused of racism, homophobia, and frequently putting wrestlers in positions and situations where they could hurt themselves. The backlash from this memo was so great that it forced DeMott to resign as head trainer of NXT in early March. And to that I say good riddance, because you know...
Now hold on a minute there, Zane.
What the... Well, that's odd. That wasn't Captain Lou Albano cutting me off. Certainly wasn't late 90s me. This is somebody new interrupting me this week. Hello, who's there?
My name is Big Hoss McGraw. I wrestled all over Texas and the Mid-South back in the Territory days, and as an expert in old school wrestling, I can tell you that what they did to Bill DeMott was total bull crap.
Well, Mr. McGraw, thanks for storming onto my show like this, but you know what? That's okay, because this whole DeMott situation, I think, is ripe for a good old-fashioned debate. Just one question before we go on, though. Can I find your work easily online?
Hey, no smart-ass questions.
All right, let's just get this over with. Well, first let's start with you. Why do you stand with DeMott on this issue?
Look, DeMott was just toughening up those NXT kids for the rigors of daily life as a professional wrestler. If people think DeMott's drills were so bad, then they don't know what bad is compared to what my generation went through, alright? I had to run every day through 10 miles of knee-deep mud with a rabid midget wrapped in barbed wire on my back, just so I had the privilege of taking bumps for 12 hours in the blistering sun later that day.
Hey, I'm not arguing you need to be mentally and physically tough in order to be a WWE wrestler. I understand the whole concept of sports, locker room culture, and the toughness that seems to be required with them. I mean, look what happened with the whole Richie Incognito scandal in the NFL a year or so ago. You know, I understand the merits of pushing people, but to push people to the point of injury, that doesn't seem very productive. It's kind of counterproductive given what they're trying to do with these guys. I mean, you can't expect people to run themselves ragged, pick up the tattered remains of their ACLs, and keep running the ropes. I mean, to take dangerous bumps without properly warming up first, that's insanity.
Warm it up? Oh, well, I'm a little baby who needs to stretch his neck out before taking a tiger driver. Wrestlers today are such babies. I never warmed up once before one of my matches. That's why my neck today sounds like this. And that builds character.
Well, moving on, what are your thoughts on the bullying allegations, the claims that DeMott was being racist, homophobic, and overall insensitive?
Oh, this whole anti-bullying thing is just a fad, okay? Like gluten-free diets and seatbelts. These days, anyone hears something they don't like, gets their widow Fifi's hurt, and they all of a sudden want to say they're bullied. Today's generation is so spineless. Look, bullying is alright, okay? It toughens you up.
Look, I agree we're becoming a nation of victims just looking for something to be aggrieved by, but I would hope that with the advancements we've made as a people and as a culture, that, you know, we'd be treating people with more respect, not telling people to kill themselves, or calling them pedophiles, or half-sissies, or telling black people to go back to Africa. That's not okay. I'm like 85% sure you can be a good wrestling trainer without being an asshole about it.
Do you know what this whole memo nonsense is, Zane? It's just sour grapes from someone who couldn't cut the mustard in NXT. He was told that he was not progressing to their liking after 8 months on the job. Why should we be taking his complaints seriously?
This is not the first time these allegations have come up with DeMott. It sounds like he's been a colossal shithead to trainees for years. The number of men and women who have come forth and told stories about Bill DeMott, not only after the memo was leaked, but before that, it's kind of startling. It can't all be sour grapes. Are we just supposed to think that because these guys aren't doing really well in the company, that they're former NXT guys, that these guys' opinions and experiences aren't valid? I mean, that's classic victim blaming.
If they just did what DeMott told them to do in training, they would have succeeded in the system. I don't care if DeMott's methods were considered draconian or excessive or other words I don't know the meaning of. I don't care if what DeMott said was considered bullying. It works, alright? It's old school wrestling training and it works.
See, that's just it. This whole debate is an issue of old school thinking versus modern thinking. The old school way of training wrestlers, it's time tested. It's proven. It worked for guys like Stu Hart and Vern Gagne and Killer Kowalski and all those guys, and that worked great. But we don't live in that era anymore. You can argue that we as a people are getting softer or that we're just getting smarter, but no matter how you look at it, there is a list a mile long of things that were acceptable to do back in the 70s and 80s that are considered atrocious today. And more importantly, WWE is a publicly traded company that puts itself out there as this bastion of modern corporate excellence and goodness, yet the whole locker room is still steeped in this ancient backwards carny culture that still rewards bullies and assholes. The company cannot maintain both of these identities. If WWE wants to be corporate, then they should seriously reconsider a new way of doing things in terms of training their future stars. Something that instills a greater toughness in the athletes without being so draconian and continuing this obnoxious douchebag cycle. If they can pull that off, then it might seriously change the way people perceive professional wrestling.
Well, you and I both know that ain't gonna happen as long as a McMahon is running things there at that company. Besides, everyone knows that once this whole kerfuffle dies down, they're just gonna bring DeMott back to NXT and everything's gonna be back the way it was before. He's a loyal hand and that company looks out for their own.
You know what? You're absolutely right, Big Hoss. I'll bet you in a few months DeMott comes back to NXT after undergoing sensitivity training and all will be forgotten. You know, WWE, they love the status quo. They knew what he was doing and they just didn't do anything about it until this backlash came back. You know, they love the status quo. They love to mentally dominate all of their employees, not just their trainees. And DeMott was the perfect guy to do that on the NXT level. So I'm sure he'll be back. But I hope that if and when he comes back, that not only is DeMott held more accountable for his actions, but I hope the NXT trainees feel more empowered, especially after this memo leaked. I hope they feel that they can do something, they can stand up against DeMott if he gets out of line. Because in my opinion, this kind of alleged behavior that DeMott was doing is completely unacceptable.
And in my opinion, deep-fried chicken is far more enticing than deep-fried skunk.
Wait, what? What's it got to do with DeMott?
No, I'm sorry, I totally blacked out there for a second. A lot of head injuries over the years, know what I'm saying? Hey, got any spare change for the bus?
Great. Well, anyway, what's your thought on the DeMott controversy? Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirt. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.
Hey buddy, you see the guy in a tracksuit around here? Are you Weird Al's grandpa? Oh, buddy.